I'm your host, Senor Smarty Pants, and this is
Fruit or Vegetable?
First round is an easy one. Is an apple a fruit or a vegetable?
Fruit!
That's right, it's a fruit! Okay, next up, is a carrot a fruit or a vegetable?
Vegetable!
2 for 2, good job! Okay, now for a tricky one. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable?
Fruit!
Yes, kind of. Okay, next up, peanut.
Wait, isn't that a nut?
Well, nuts are technically fruits, so... Well, peanuts are actually legumes, so is it a vegetable? I don't know. Hey, look, over there, a celebrity. Okay, let's go back to an easy one. Strawberry.
Fruit!
Be more specific.
Aggregate accessory fruit.
Yes, told you it was an easy one. Okay, and now for the last one. Brussels sprouts.
Trash.
Bingo! Okay, so what was all that about? Well, it might help to start off with some definitions! First, let's introduce botany, the scientific study of making things up and hoping people don't notice. Wait, shouldn't antagonize the botanists yet. The dictionary, whatever that is, defines botany as the study and classification of plants. There's a specific way how botanists define a fruit, a mature, ripened ovary of a flowering plant. In layman terms, that means any flower, after pollinated, turns into a fruit. And notice how sweet doesn't appear anywhere in the definition. From a botanist's view, fruits are everywhere. We just don't eat them. Botanical fruits are then subcategorized by their structure. Of edible fruits, we have nuts, which have hard shells and no fleshy bits, such as hazelnuts and chestnuts, and notably not peanuts, cashews, or almonds. Drupes, which have hard pits, usually surrounded by a soft, fleshy outer layer, such as peaches, cherries, confusingly almonds and cashews, and even more confusingly coffee and black pepper. Caryopsis, or cereals, which are like nuts, but the hard outside part is fused to the seed, such as wheat, corn, and Count Chocula. Legumes, think pods of seeds that open up along the seam, such as green peas, pea nuts, and chickpeas. Oh, plums, which have seed-contained cores, which are surrounded by flesh, known as the receptacle, such as apples and pears. Capsules, which are capsules that contain seeds, such as Brazil nuts and poppy seeds. Capsules for both of those are pretty cool looking. Achenes, which are similar to nuts but have thin shells, such as quinoa and buckwheat. Also a controversial fruit called cypsilla, which is considered either a separate type of botanical fruit or a type of achene, depending on the liar, botanist you talk to. The main culinary example of this fruit are sunflower seeds. And berries. No, not technically a berry. I said berries. Still not a berry. I said berries. That's not even a fruit. Technically it's a cone, like a pine cone. I said berry. Yes, a berry we're all familiar with. Berries are fleshy fruits that usually contain small seeds and are the most common type of botanical fruit, kind of like a catch-all. Examples of berries do actually include foods we call berries, such as blueberries and cranberries, as well as very confusing members like avocados, bananas, and eggplants. Also, there are two subgroups of berries, called modified berries. Hesperidia, which have thick rinds and segments called septa, are the citruses, and peppos, which have hard rinds but no septa, such as cucumber, watermelon, and pumpkins. Alright, that's it for simple fruit, but we still have aggregate and multiple fruits, both of which are collections of simple fruits. Aggregate fruits, like simple fruits, come from one flower but contain many, many fruits. Strawberries are an example. You know what you think are the seeds of the strawberry? Well, they're technically achenes, the small one-seeded fruits, and the strawberry is just a container for them. Multiple fruits, on the other hand, are a collection of many simple fruits that come from many flowers, such as pineapple, whose fruit contains many botanical berry fruits. You can see the form of the pineapple be shaped by the flowers. Alright, that's your crash course into botanical fruits. Next up, what are botanical vegetables? Who knows? While you might be able to get botanists to define a vegetable under duress, botanists try to stay away from defining vegetables because, as we'll find out, it's complicated. Alright, hopefully we're done with botanists for now. Get out of here, get out of here. What are culinary fruits and vegetables? Fruits are kind of easy. A culinary fruit is, for the most part, any sweet or tart-tasting plant part, primarily botanical fruits. There'll be some weirdness, but this works for now. As for culinary vegetables, well, it might be easier to map it out. Note that the definitions of what makes a culinary fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, or grain, or cereal is purely my opinion based on what I can find regarding how these are used dietarily. Anyone has any issue how I categorize these foods, please submit your recommendations to my suggestion box. Also, this is by no means comprehensive. I'm just going to go over the most popular items and not go crazy. Okay, we're going to start off with botanical fruits, and we'll also put culinary fruits, culinary vegetables, as well as sort of completion's sake, culinary grains and culinary nuts and seeds. As we can see, this is going to get a little ugly. Now let's go through the subgroups of botanical fruits. Start with an easy one, plums. All plums are fruits, such as apples and pears. Boom, done. Next we'll do drupes, and yeah, this is going to get a little tricky. Examples in fruits are peaches and cherries. Examples in nuts are almonds, cashews, and pistachios. And the lone vegetable drupe are olives, not avocados. We'll get back to that. Then we have legumes. The easy one are green peas and green beans, as well as any type of beans. Legumes also contain peanuts, which, now that I think about it, have a great name. Botanically they're peas, culinarily they're nuts. Then we have the stripped down botanical nut group, such as hazelnuts and chestnuts. With them are capsules, such as Brazil nuts and poppy seeds. Seems easy enough until we get to okra, which is also a capsule, but a culinary vegetable. The controversial cypsilla category is also in the seed group with sunflower seeds. Then we have caryopsis and achenes, which are almost all culinary greens. Wheat and rice and caryopsis, and quinoa and buckwheat and achenes. The odd man out is corn, which is both considered a grain or a vegetable, depending on the type and use. Let's go to berries, the catch-all group. For fruits, we have blueberries, cranberries, grapes, and bananas. For vegetables, we have tomatoes, avocados, peppers, and eggplant. Avocado is a tricky one because with its large pit, it seems like it should be a drupe, but due to some botanist black magic classification, it's generally considered a berry. We also have the modified berries. First is Hesperidia, like citruses, which are all fruits, limes, lemons, and oranges. oranges. The second are peppos, which contain watermelon and cantaloupes on the fruit side, and pumpkin, cucumbers, and squash on the veggie side. So yeah, botanical berries are pretty much nothing like culinary berries. Figures. We'll put aggregate and multiple fruits as their own categories, even though that's kind of cheating because they contain other fruits. For example, strawberries contain many little achenes, raspberries and blackberries contain many drupelets, but all aggregate fruits are culinary fruits. Multiple fruits are a little bit more complicated. The most common multiple fruits that are considered culinary fruits are pineapple and fig. And fig, oh boy. First, what we think are the seeds of the fig are actually inverted flowers, and the hollow part of what we think is the fruit is called the syconium. But wait, senor, if the flowers are inside the syconium, how are they pollinated? Well, dear viewer with that weird voice, figs are pollinated by a type of wasp called the fig wasp. A female fig wasp enters the fig and lays its eggs inside. The male and female larvae then mate. The female larvae end up escaping the fig while the males die inside. That's right, a fig is just a wasp cemetery. But don't worry, one study concluded that only 34% of figs are pollinated by the fig wasp, so that fig that you're about to eat probably doesn't have a dead wasp in it. Probably. Anyway, there's also a weird group of multiple fruits, which I'm going to dub the South Asian big boys, and they include jackfruit and durian. They're not as common in the United States, but I wanted to mention them because they're the only group of botanical fruits that can be considered both culinary fruits and culinary vegetables. Depending on the type of jackfruit or durian, when ripe, they can be sweet and can be used as a fruit, but other varieties or stages of ripeness can be more bitter and have a meat-like texture that can be used as a vegan substitute for meat. And yes, durian is the fruit that allegedly smells like farts. I wouldn't know, because so do I. Okay, that covers all botanical fruits, but we still have other groups of culinary vegetables, stalks and stems of plants such as celery and asparagus, and leaves such as lettuce, spinach, and kale. Quick fact, Pizza Hut used to be the #1 purchaser of kale, but only used it as a garnish. I vote that we return it to only being a garnish. We also have a messy category of underground vegetables. Not worth getting too deep into right now, but these include underground stems, roots, and tubers, such as onions, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and carrots. Another weird one are florets, which just means a tightly packed group of flower buds. It contains broccoli and cauliflower, but from a technicality standpoint, we also eat the stems and leaves of these two, so I'm going to put them in a shared group among all of these. A cool thing I came across in my research is a Romanesco broccoli, which looks both AI generated and like a fractal. Allegedly, it's a real thing. I don't know. I don't trust the internet.
Senor Smarty Pants, what's this area?
You ask in your weird Kermit the Frog voice. Well, dear viewer, it's story time. Back in the Gilded Age, Chester A. Arthur signed the Tariff Act of 1883, which required a tax to be paid on vegetables, but not fruits.
Did somebody say tariffs?
Get out of here, can of worms. I'm talking about tariffs from 150 years ago. Anyway, the John Nixon Company sued Edward L. Hedden, the collector of customs in the Port of New York, on the basis that the tomatoes the company were importing were definitionally fruits, not vegetables, and therefore should be exempt from the tariffs and the taxes they paid to import them. This case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, where the court upheld the lower court's ruling, saying, botanically speaking, tomatoes are the fruit of a vine, but in the common language of the people, these are vegetables. Thus, yes, I guess by order of the US government, tomatoes are legally vegetables. Which brings us to rhubarb. There was a similar case in 1947, where a company named C.J. Tower & Sons, who was importing rhubarb from Canada, argued the opposite, that rhubarb was a fruit, not a vegetable, and the US court agreed with them. One definition presented during the case was that a label fruit occasionally applied to other certain vegetable structures eaten as a sauce or dessert as the stalks of a rhubarb, which seemed to have been impactful on the ruling. But yes, apparently rhubarb occupies the unique space of being the only culinary fruit that's not a botanical fruit. Okay, that's it. No more. We don't have anything more to talk about. Well, up until now, everything looks somewhat nice and tidy, and we can even argue that the definition of a vegetable is any savory plant part. Well, that definition gets ruined when we introduce two weird edge cases, mushrooms and seaweed, both of which are commonly viewed as vegetables, but neither are even plants. Mushrooms are in the fungi kingdom, and seaweed belong to the Protista kingdom. What's the Protista kingdom? It's complicated, but all in all, mushrooms and seaweed throw a wrench in the vegetables or plants definition. There's a reason why botanists generally avoid trying to define a vegetable, because it's so loosely categorized and frankly subjective. Classifications can change from organization to organization. Like for example, in 2001, the EU officially designated carrots a fruit for trade purposes. There seems to be a little rhyme or reason why botanical fruits have little to no relation to culinary fruits, and this is why I'm mad at botanists. Unfortunately for us, it seems like the history of botany is rife with inconsistent or confusing terminology. For example, the word fruit in its modern usage became common in the 13th century, and only afterward did botanists decide to use it for scientific purposes, even if the scientific usage didn't really line up with the colloquial usage of the time. This happened for a bunch of other terms that needed to be stretched to help classify different scientific concepts. Some words, like nuts, even got defined and then redefined many times by different botanists, adding further complexity to the usage. One German botanist in 1845 wrote, "Nowhere have botanists started from the language of common life and merely multiplying the words taken so little pains to define with scientific strictness. The confusion is indescribable." And in a particularly hilarious sequence of events, in 1832, an English botanist by the name of John Linley wrote wrote in regards to other botanists' confusing terminology, they have felt justified in contriving a nomenclature at variance with that of his predecessors, for reasons which it is difficult to comprehend. Well, it was later written about that same John Linley, while he criticized others for being at variance, he himself inadvertently reversed the meaning of some terms that has led to confusion today. It feels like the real-life version of the Spider-Man pointing meme, where each botanist both criticizes and is then more confusing than someone before them. All of this is how we end up with weird trivia, like how a tomato is technically a fruit, but as the saying goes, knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit, wisdom is knowing it doesn't belong in a fruit salad. Alright, so where does that leave us? Alright, defining a vegetable. In my research, I don't think I have come across a single definition that doesn't specifically categorize vegetables as plants, but we know we can't do that thanks to fungus and seaweed. Also keep in mind, botanists and biologists want to keep their stinky hands away from this, so this is purely a culinary definition. Here's my best attempt at it. A vegetable is any edible, savory leaning ingredient that comes from a plant or other non-animal organisms traditionally treated the same way in cooking, including fungi and seaweeds. Boom. Done. So much of this stems from botanists using old terminology and never deciding to move off of it. In fact, there are some botanists that argue that blueberries and cranberries aren't even technically botanical berries, which blows my mind, which would mean not a single culinary berry is considered a botanical berry, which I'm just not going to deal with. And one last cheap shot to botanists, I'm glad I studied physics. A real science. Just kidding. Just kidding. Love you guys. At least you aren't economists. Thanks for watching my video. Here's a shout out to all my supporters. Wait, this is my first video. I don't have any supporters. Crap.